code. Yeah, go ahead, Sam. You can read, please.
Okay. It's gonna sound crazy though. All right. Mazu was another master opposed to the notion that one can gradually progress towards enlightenment through meditation. Mazu asserted it is only possible because one already has the has Buddha nature that full awakening is possible. He came to criticize any kind of artificial striving for enlightenment stages, teaching that practice becomes meaningful only with a complete breakthrough to understanding. Following Ning, Mazu stressed the sudden, unexpected nature of the enlightenment experience.
Okay.
And this is talking about how this particular master, Mazu, thought that trying to do the enlightenment in stages wouldn't work, and that you had to come to enlightenment through like a breakthrough.
What about the mute? Rather than turning it up and down, is there a mute button?
Yeah, the mute button is already pressed. That's what's so weird about it.
What about the mute button on the remote?
Giới động
Oh,
ở cái screen,
Rather than turning it up and down like.
Turn on cái screen trên cái máy đi. Giới động, mở cái screen bên cái máy này đi. Trên cái máy laptop á. Mở cái screen lên. Yeah, can you turn on the screen down? Yeah. Yeah, được rồi, ok. Rồi, quay nói đi. So, Sam, so you understand what's meant by certain unexpected nature of enlightenment, right? Quay cái máy.
yeah, I mean, just instead of just like building up to it slowly, it's something that happens, just when the conditions are right, like all at once.
Okay. Yeah, how about Miss Christie? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fairly typical for most of the Mahayana lineages anyways, to believe in a, of course, the Buddha nature and the sudden awakening is always possible. Maybe momentary, but it's possible. Probably not sustainable.
Cái đạo cứ mở cái màn hình ở trên TV lớn đi, mở cái thoáng đi, đừng có tắt.
But I guess that's why they call it the enlightenment experience rather than becoming enlightened, because it's probably, like I said, without some sort of like real level of understanding, that's probably hard to sustain.
So what's mean by unexpected nature of enlightenment experience? What's mean?
Well, yeah, that you by nature are actually free. It's the fetters of your mind that keep you from being enlightened. So if you suddenly are able to see past those or let go of those, yeah, you have, I'm sure, some sort of blissful experience of enlightenment, whatever that is. Whatever that exactly is. But I think in my understanding of enlightenment, it's not that many people are able to have these moments of it. It's that to stay in that state requires a pretty, not only like advanced sort of karma, I suppose, but in this lifetime, some sort of real understanding of what's happening and how to sustain that and not get sucked back into old karmas.
Hmm. So what do you think about Newton experience with the apple? What do you think? When he sat under the apple tree and that apple dropped on his head, and suddenly he recognized that
Gravity.
gravitation.
Yeah.
Is that kind of enlightenment or what?
I mean, certainly that's a deep understanding, but from the way I understand enlightenment is that you are able to see, you're able to really live in a very moment of now, like unchanged by external circumstances, and form in some capacity to see the macrocosm of interdependent circumstance
Hmm.
and keep and have that awareness and peace of that, like, you know, that blissful, like, I don't think peace is the word, but yeah, this very stable sense. But you know, unless you really understand the nature of the mind and habits and stuff like that, it is super easy to that is how the human mind works. Is the way those neurons fire. So unless you've had some sort of level of making those neurons fire sustainably like that, I don't think that like biochemically it would even be sustainable, like from a scientific standpoint.
What do you think, Sam?
Yes, possible, extremely unlikely.
How about you, Sam? What do you think? With Newton experiment with the apple, is that kind of enlightenment or what?
Well, I think like full enlightenment, like the Buddha has, means that you like know everything, like understand everything, have like perfect wisdom and knowledge. I think that Newton didn't have like that, but he did have like a sudden realization where he did have more wisdom and more knowledge than he had before.
Yeah, and gravity is, and especially now that we understand quantum physics, it's kind of funny that we talk about that, because Newtonian physics are sort of are like kind of becoming outdated. Of course, gravity, the idea of gravity is not outdated, but the way our reality works has with the way science has changed, that like Newtonian physics isn't really necessary, like it's not even a truth, right? So if you are enlightened, that is ultimate truth. There is no advancing science that can change that. Newton, yes, had this very interesting understanding of the maybe the certain gravitational forces and in physics, but like, was that an idea that he had to continue to work on? Was it something that really like improved his life and the life of others? That no. So I think when you're talking about, certainly it was a big idea of the time, but it's not an ultimate truth.
So one thing is that, yes, he recognized that's law, right? The law of gravitation, but somehow it's outside of his mind. He could not recognize his own mind. That's a big
Yeah.
right? Enlightenment, that's you recognize your own nature. But for him, he recognized outside nature of his own experience. That's what different. And that's why you say, so after that, he chased after those kind of theories, those kind of principle, but he have not looked within himself yet. So that's not enlightenment. That's just some kind of realization of knowledge, right? Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Yes, please.
All right, Linji and Dahui, descendants of Mazu in the lineage and ideology, stressed this realization. They championed a confrontational directness in teaching and criticized a form of meditation called quiet sitting, which was aimed at cultivating mental stillness. Linji taught that the value of sudden realization built upon the faith in one's own Buddha nature. Dahui urged the use of koans to aid in the manifestation of inherent spirituality. He characterized the form of meditation taught by Hongji, contemporary Zen master, as silent illumination, calling it a false form of practice that confuses the sickness with the remedy, denying the experience of enlightenment. In turn, Dahui's approach was labeled koan gazing Zen by Hongji, and both labels stuck, with silent illumination describing the shikanza of the present-day Soto school and the koan gazing Zen method of Renzai school. So here you have two masters criticizing the technique rather than yeah, which I don't know. I certainly think that's interesting that they supposedly such highly enlightened masters don't understand the need for multiple important for like there's not one path to Buddhism, and like offering such a harsh criticism of it kind of surprises me, but whatever. I suppose that's my projection of what I think enlightened masters are supposed to be.
Yeah, how about you, Sam? You recognize the difference, Sam?
Yeah. It's like hard to explain though. I think it's like, you know, one school is trying to become enlightened by just sitting quietly, like just sitting quietly. The other one is like sit and think about this koan.
It's like sit there and work a mental puzzle. Certainly, they're both very valid techniques. Not everybody's cut out for a mental puzzle, and not everyone is cut out for painfully long hours of meditation either. Like we're just not all wired the same.
Yes, two opposed master, right? Linji, yeah, talk about your realization that you need to recognize our own pure nature. That's simple. That's all. But for Dahu, he used the coin. He emphasized on sitting. So there's many ways. Of course, which whoever feel comfortable with once, they can follow. Right? There's no wrong or right, good or bad, right? So depend upon how they like to use. And that's why so one more time, the Soto go with the graduate sitting meditation, and Zinzai go with the Sun enlightenment. Then
I think Ram Dass, who studied in many traditions, he always kind of talked about people getting like they're searching for enlightenment, yet they get stuck they stick themselves in these forms. They stick to these forms of these like, which is just kind of an interesting spiritual paradox.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Sam.
Human nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sam, can you read, please?
However, to a large extent, the primary difference between Rinzai and Soto schools is one of emphasis or approach rather than of substance. Both trace their lineage to Huineng, and both stress that meditation is value not as a method for the attainment of wisdom, but as the embodiment of wisdom itself. Meditation is seen as a dynamic, active state of heightened awareness. Buddha consciousness is found in the things of everyday life, with meditation being the best way to reorient the mind so that it is able, I can't to appreciate its encounters with the other dimension of reality.
Yeah.
So he's saying that, it's not about using meditation to become enlightened. It's about when you're meditating, you are in a state that's more like enlightenment because the Buddha consciousness is present when you're in a meditation, practicing meditation.
So how can we recognize Buddha consciousness in evidence in the things of everyday life? How then?
From my understanding, it's is not wanting more, is like you stay very present in the moment. You're not in the sense of wanting more, moving to the next, trying to lean into the next moment, trying to push away the bad things or pull in the good things that yeah, I think day to day life is a little more graceful when you start saying, okay, well, maybe I'm able to be a little bit more accepting of circumstance.
Yeah, Sam.
Not take circumstance so personally.
Yeah, thank you. Sam, could you move the laptop toward Miss Kristen?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's no, that yeah, that's
I'll do that.
that's good. Okay. Yeah, so in the Zen traditions, regardless of the tradition, whether it's graduate or a certain one, the main purpose is to recognize own pure nature, whether they use the Kongan or whether they sit there, they need to, or even us, we need to recognize that we have that pure nature, Buddha nature. Then, yeah.
And I know I'm not supposed to hold on to these experiences, that you're supposed to just let them go. But that summer where I had I was in the circumstance to just meditate a whole lot and study Dharma a whole lot, and then go out and spend a long time out by the lake contemplating the reality of nature. And I did have some very real experiences of reality significantly changing for me. And actually maintaining that for a little while. And I don't know how to explain it, but reality was more about all the components shifted and the feeling of it being so real. I really started understanding, oh, this isn't as real as I think it is. But I know I can't. Of course, that's when I go ahead, now that I work with other people and I'm around other have all these other things to think about, it's certainly a lot harder to get into those mind states.
Mhm.
Or have those like really open, profound experiences of like, I don't even know how to explain the experience, but yeah, it's certainly a lot harder when you're engaged in regular worldly duties.
So Sam, how could we recognize our pure nature during the daily life then? How, in the practical sense? How? When the children yell, when they play, when you're so busy at work. So how could we recognize our pure nature during our daily life then? That's mm, that's the root of the foundation of our practice, especially in Mahayana tradition. What do you think?
It's hard to explain,
Mm,
but I would say like one way I would explain it is when you kind of just step outside of yourself and
mm,
step outside of the situation. Like you're not your thoughts and you're not your feelings anymore. You are observing them, you know?
Yeah, I think that's really important, especially because, kids have a way of kind of taking you on an emotional ride.
yeah.
They just kind of suck you in like that. So sometimes it's really important when they suck you on that like energetic ride of theirs, like to be able to really understand what's happening in your own body. Like,
Mm,
oh, my heart rate is up. Oh, I'm clenching my jaw. I'm hoping that it was, rather than just regulating yourself, whatever that, with whatever mindful breathing and kind of like checking in back into your own energy, because yeah, kids have a great way of just taking your energy and going.
So in the Shurama Sutra, I think I mentioned before. So the Buddha told one monk to strike the bell, and he asked another monk whether he heard the sound of the bell yet. So the second monk said, "Yes, I heard." So the Buddha told the first monk to strike again, and he asked the second monk. Yes, the second monk said, "Yes, I heard." But later on, let's say a few minutes later, the Buddha asked the second monk whether he still hear the sound of the bell or not. So of course, the second monk say no. And he asked the first monk to try again, and he asked the same question. Um, so you follow Cham, Miss Kristen, you follow that story? Right. So
Mhm.
let's say the children slam the table, right? Of course, we hear the sound, right? And after that, no more sound. If they slam one more time, yes, we hear the sound. And after that, we would not. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that right? So
Mhm.
what say wrong?
Well, I mean, at a certain point though, there is a level of vibration that carries on for a certain amount of time that you might not even recognize if you're not listening for it or paying attention to it.
Mhm.
Things don't exist in your reality until you pay attention to them.
Yeah. So that's the point. The point is that our hearing nature is still there. Whether people, your children slam the door, slam the table, or whether they strike the bell, right? We still have ability to hear all the times. So we just wait for the times that someone slammed the table, someone strike the bell, and we say, "Oh, I heard that." But actually, after that, we say, we don't hear." But that's wrong. Makes sense,
Yeah.
Sam? Makes sense, Sam? We have ability to hear all the times, all right? No matter what kind of sound, right? You follow
You
that?
mean like hear it in your mind?
Yeah, not
You are the hearing is always there,
yeah.
but you don't notice you're hearing until something disturbs it.
So yeah, whether I'm talking, whether other people are talking, but you still have ability to hear, right? You don't need to wait for them to speak. You don't need to wait for them to slam the table to hear. Your ability to hear all the times. That's what we call the hearing nature. So in the Buddhist view, through the ears, we call hearing nature. Through the eyes, we say, according to Buddha teaching, they say that see the nature. The nature, that means it's never lasting. It's just everlasting. It's always there. Make sense now? Right? So that's why somehow, but let's say we were turned, we were like Miss Kristen mentioned about the children, right? The children, they suck all our energy because they say something emotionally, right? And this disturb our mentality, right? Whether they pray us or whether they disrespectful to us. So we have the kind of emotional fluctuation depend upon their saying. That means we are controlled by those kind of sound. Make sense? Good sound, bad sound, pleasant sound, unpleasant sound. We are controlled by those sound. But actually, we have ability to recognize them. Whether pleasant sound or unpleasant sound, we still have the ability to hear. And if we stay above the pleasant or unpleasant sound, right? If as much we stay above, as much we recognize, oh, I have the pure nature that recognize unpleasant sound or pleasant sound. That's all we need. Whether, let's say, in the practical sense, if someone prays us, usually we're happy. If someone scores, we feel sad. But if we stay above that kind of praising and accusing, right? And if we recognize, oh, just the sound, whether accusing or praising, just the sound. Am I more?
Just one of the 8 earthly winds.
So the witness, am I still will be stable? It makes sense, right, Sam? Yeah, it's applicable to our seeing nature too. Whether beautiful side or ugly side, it's just the side. We recognize, or we have that kind of seeing nature. That's what's about, right? And how about Miss Christie? How about the food? How is applicable to food?
How is
How can
like
we recognize? How can we recognize our taste nature when we eat it, when we consume the food? How?
oh, I have a really hyper, just because I try to pay attention a lot to my eating. I have a hyper awareness of how hardwired my brain is for sugar.
Oh,
So like I can know sugar is bad. Like I know I'm not supposed to be eating sugar. I know it's just a flavor, right? I understand the chemical reactions, everything. But there is still something in my body that my body still gets up and goes and gives into the sugar, you know. So I'm very aware at recognizing all those like little different steps. Now, am I able do I have the skill to be able to like usurp those? Probably not. No, or not yet. You know.
how about Sam? What do you think? While we eating the delicious food or undelicious food, how could we recognize our pure nature through eating? What do you think?
I guess to like not care about what you're eating. Like if you were eating something like really sweet, like Kirsten was talking about a you're eating something sweet and you're like, you recognize, you're like, I don't care that this is sweet.
And it's funny because your body can, and that's especially with eating, it's so interesting. Like depending on what you're eating, your physical, so like when you eat sugar, you get this like shot of dopamine, and then of course all these other things. So yeah, you can sit there and recognize all the different parts and stages of what is this taste doing to me? What does this food do to my body? You know, you certainly can grow a meta awareness about that.
Yeah.
Now, having the control over that is, like I said, different because our brains get really hardwired into certain eating. That's how humans are designed.
Yeah,
Eating
like
habits.
I really like a lot of vegetables that other people don't like, but like this, like you know how everybody's taste is different. Like
Mhm.
I also think about how like whenever you're really hungry, like if you're starving to death, you don't care, you'll just eat anything.
Oh,
you know?
everything tastes so
Yeah.
incredibly good.
It's not really the flavor, it's your perception of the flavor.
Mhm.
Well, that's exactly what happens with meditation and or like a dark retreat, which I think would like is oddly appealing to me, is where you go sit in like pitch black, like blackout. And
Mammoth Cave.
they know that you go to one of these retreat places, and of course you have to have they have like a guide that helps you, but you sit in like there is no there's I can forward you a really cool documentary about it. But apparently it's like one of the most intense, so you're completely deprived of light and any sort of like, and they feed you just a very bland vegan diet, like through some sort of second room or something. And there's no sound in there, which can like make people super crazy. So they do have an they put an ohm box in there. So if you really need to like disrupt the sensory thing, if that starts, because it really is like a hero's journey. It's really fascinating to watch, like what spiritual things you have to tackle if somebody sits you in pitch black for a week.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, one more time. Yeah, correctly. Yeah, so when we consume the food one more times, as well as we just pay attention or be aware of the flavor, that's all. Right? That's all we need to know. And whether it's delicious or not, we are aware of them. And we know that the awareness is of pure nature. That's all.
Does the Buddha talk about all that, all the different ones in the
Yes.
Shurangama Sutra?
Yes. That's
I saw online, I looked up the Shurangama Sutra. It was super long. I saw one in the temple library over there, and it's not very long, so it must not have the.
That's different. That is the mantra. That the mantra different from sutra. The mantra is the first part. Actually, no, sorry, the last part of the sutra. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, so that that sutra is talk about a pure nature there through our
If I
eyes.
wanted, I wanted to read it, but I kind of got, it was so long that I didn't know if I should just try to read it. Like, are there certain parts that you think would be good parts to read first?
Mm, yes, some part need to have some kind of explanation. Other part you can read by yourself. But try not pick and choose. Just try to read from the beginning to see which part that that you can understand.
The mantra is a really good mantra, right?
The mantra is different. Yeah, the mantra is for helping us to protect ourselves from evil spirit. In
We chant it in English.
the same, the not English, but the transliteration of Sanskrit. Not in English because they don't translate the mantra, because mantra has many different meanings. Yeah. Anyway, so that's what in Buddhist, my high Buddhist view. Here, one more thing I want to emphasize that in Theravada tradition, they say there's no ego, right? No cell. Remember the five aggregate, right? No body, a form, feeling, perception, formation of perception, and last one is consciousness. So in Theravada, they they negate everything of them, and so that they can let go of ego, right? But of course, for the Buddhist people, this is even me too. When I was young, with that type of negate, so how could we know who we are? So Mahayana tradition remind us, yes, when we let go of that type of false ego, we live with a pure nature. That's the nature, our Buddha nature there. Make sense, Mr. Kristen? Right? That's why it's so
Well, I
beautiful.
feel like the Theravada perspective on a lot of things too is that it's clear, it wasn't designed for lay people to understand. It was designed for people that had, I hate to call it luxury, but the luxury to really study and practice those things, which with a person, people having to lead lay lives, running here and there and stuff like that, you probably need some sort of, I don't want to say easier, but more accessible understanding.
Yeah.
Well, it's still like, did you like the um interesting thing to me is like their understanding is complex, but I feel like it's also incomplete because if you negate everything, you also have to ask, then what is nothing, you know? And they don't really, that I know of, go into that. But in the Madhyamakaya school, like Nagarjuna, and like the Vajraparamita, like talks about like the nature of nothing, like nothing is not nothing. And so that's like why it kind of comes around from being like, instead of negating everything, it's like you get back to like the true nature of everything. Um, like I think about this all the time, but it's like so hard to put into words, but it's like everything in like samsara, everything in our universe and like all the other worlds except for like nirvana, um, you know, I can't put it into words, but there's like something beyond it all,
Well, it's hard to
and but it's
see.
also like underneath it. It's like it's not like spatially like outside of it, but it's like beyond it, but it's also within every part of it. And that's like the pure nature.
It's hard to talk about no contrast
Yeah.
when the only thing we have is contrast.
Mm-hmm.
The only things that let's say what we recognize is the contrast, right? How do you get people to recognize the no contrast that's underneath that without having to, so that's where I think a lot of those types of non-duality thinking that's very prevalent in Buddhism. Well, and a lot of your other Eastern traditions. Of course, it's very difficult to discuss non-duality when the nature of language is duality.
I feel like I'm even worse at discussing it than usual because my voice is so bad.
Yeah, that's rough.
Like even if I really wanted to try, my voice wouldn't let me. But it's interesting. I think about it a lot because there's all kinds of
I'm always very captivated by people that can speak about it very skillfully, because that, for me, it's always just so mind opening. When I listen to a teacher or someone that's very skilled in that can kind of carefully guide my thoughts into understanding that, and then maybe even holding those ideas for any lengthy amount of time than, when it was originally just described.
Yeah, thank you. So let us that's Miss Chris. Yeah, can you read this one, please?
A Soto Zen monk sitting straight backed on his cushion or zafu. He is engaged in a form of zazen known as just sitting that aims at a state of awareness of the very ground of one's own being.
Okay. So
That's
yeah,
understanding Dharma through posture, through the nature of posture and sitting.
So Miss Kristen doing the meditation. So what do you think? In the Zen tradition, in Zen whole or Zen monastery, some monk will walk around. Have you seen that before? And they hold the stick. They hold the stick. You seen that before? Not in actual, right? You never
Not
see
real life, no, just
but on the video, right?
video or Reddit or who knows.
So what do you think? Is that violent or what? When they use a stick to hit the monk.
The students. It's interesting. I was listening to a conversation last night between two practitioners about like cruel teachers, cruel Buddhist teachers that are actually like just mirroring back some sort of like level of harsh reality for you. But they mentioned like one of the key components though, what is like a trust relationship with a teacher that engages that's 100, it's consensual, it's 100% consensual. Yeah.
So what do you think?
But please don't hit me, thanks.
Yeah, what do you think, Sam?
Might beat you up. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I mean, I think like if you go to that kind of master, then you're agreeing to have that kind of teaching. That means that you must see some kind of benefit in it.
There has to be a level of trust.
Yeah, and yeah, you trust that master enough to do it. And I think usually like they don't like beat you, they just like try to wake you up or like keep you from getting distracted.
Yeah, that's the point.
Refocus you, yeah, because
Yeah,
apparently pain is one of the easiest things to focus on when you're meditating, by the way, if you haven't noticed.
so if you sit longer, you see, let's say if you sit more than 30 minutes, and sometimes we are in the verge between sleepiness and awakening, right? So that's why somehow we easy fall asleep, but somehow we say that we think that we are awake, actually we fall asleep. So the master just used the stick to hit it. All right, let me share with you this short video clip.
You see what happens during a meditation, what happens to the mind of the student or the practitioner during this type of Zen meditation. You see, in meditation, what the student tries to do or does is to see the world as an illusion, to see now imagine yourself on a stage playing a role, right? So you're playing a role on a stage, a drama, a stage show. Now you imagine yourself in that role, gets attached to it and start playing that role. Whatever role that you're playing, you get attached to that role. Because unless you get attached to that role, you can play it well.
Sorry.
So to play it very effectively, to play it well, And the mind keeps going back to that character and gets attached to it. Whatever that character is, either it's
Okay, anyway, yeah, at my monastery and they went to China, yes, they have that kind of monk walking around and hold a stick, and whoever falls asleep, they will hit them. That kind of wake him up. That's all. Right. So
The only time I've ever gotten really, really super painfully sleepy was during retreat, walking and chanting Aida fuck. It was like towards the end of the day, and I was walking, I was like physically awake, but my body was so like I was so like, I'm gonna fall down and fall asleep if I do any more of this. It was so hard.
mhm.
That's the only time I've ever really, in regular meditation, I tend not to struggle with it, but that day, whoo, I struggled with alertness.
Mm. Yeah, so actually with that type of reminding, somehow we appreciate in Zen tradition, like you say, the compromise and the acceptance of the guidance of the master, but still this is just helpful, especially while you sitting there for a while and you are in the verge of sleepiness and awakening, right? So you need to have that kind of reminding. Just tap your shoulder, hit your shoulder so you can wake up or you can recognize them. Mm, yeah. Okay. So hopefully, right? Hopefully sometime in future, some mid Christian, we can go up there, right? Go to Corden, right? We can sit long up there. It's more quiet, right? Than here. We have a lot of children run around. Mm.
I was,
My house is very quiet.
Really?
I'm lucky.
I
My
was-
house is very quiet.
I was gonna ask you, Ty, can I go up to the mountain again sometime soon?
Sure, no problem. You can ask thầy giáo đạo to give you a key so you can go up there. Yeah. So it's more quiet.
Yeah, no, my backyard is fenced off and I have a privacy fence and there's no one really behind me. It's just, so I go and sit quietly in meditation in my backyard, do barefoot walking in the grass, stuff like that. So I'm really fortunate to be able to,
Wow.
like, when I go home, I can just.
Mm. So your house in the subdivision area or in where?
It is, but it backs up, my house, there's like a creek kind of behind it. And then another like easement and a tree line, and then behind the tree line is a big empty field. So I have my two next door neighbors, but I have a big privacy fence and
Mm.
yeah, so I'm not bothered. Like I can stay nice and quiet,
That's your blessing.
sit for a long time.
Okay, so thank you. So let us finish today then.